Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi appears to be losing his grip on power. Protesters now say they've taken control in the east of the country and they're now planning a push on the capital, Tripoli. Here are the latest developments. US President Barack Obama says the US is looking at a full range of options on how to deal with the crisis. Along with European and other nations, officials are considering economic sanctions and freezing the assets of the Gaddafi family. Oil production is reportedly down a quarter, with 400,000 fewer barrels being pumped each day. European and Chinese oil firms are pulling out their staff and halting some output. At least 26 nations have also begun efforts to get their citizens out of Libya and to safety. A military Hercules aircraft is en route to Tripoli to collect British citizens, and Turkey says it's mounted the biggest evacuation effort in its history. Thousands of people are leaving Libya to escape the violence. Some have been arriving back in the Algerian capital to be met by their families. They brought with them eyewitness accounts of the chaos in Libya.
There were bullets in the early evening everywhere. You could see it with your own eyes. If you go out, you would be killed. Even if you looked through the window, you'd be killed. We've hardly eaten anything over the last week. Thank God we made it back to Algeria. It's a blessing.
There were so many people, and I can't describe what it was like in Libya. So many foreigners were there, and suddenly everything came to an end. There was no one left there. We stayed alone, but we were so scared we had to stay in and not go out.
I feel like crying. I'm so happy to be back in Algeria. Thank God I escaped the carnage. Did you see Baghdad? It was just like being in Baghdad. They saw planes, helicopters, people screaming, women slaughtering people. There were about 60 dead people in the green square in the centre of Tripoli. These 60 people were slaughtered. Buildings, hotels, the Justice Ministry, they were burned down. We were just working there, trying to make a living. Thank God our president, bless him, has helped us. It took us 4 days to get to the airport. You need too many papers to leave the country.
3,000 Turkish citizens have returned home from Libya. They arrived at the Mediterranean port of Marmaris on 2 ships sent by the country to evacuate them. At least 5,000 Turks have now left Libya, of about 25,000 in the country. More than 160 mostly Ukrainian nationals have arrived in Kiev after being evacuated from Libya on a military transport plane. Some have been speaking about what they had seen in Tripoli. One doctor described how difficult it was treating the many wounded people.
Surgery lasted about 1 hour. All were gunshot wounds. As soon as the surgery room was cleaned, it received another patient. You can calculate how many people have been treated in 8 surgery rooms working non-stop. As soon as they finished with one wounded person, another came.
Foreign nationals have also been returning to Russia. Leif Bark has met some who fled as they arrived in Moscow.
Touching down in Tripoli, a French military plane arrives to evacuate foreign citizens stranded in Libya. Several nations have organised emergency flights.
We're taking every action to get the remaining British nationals in Libya out of harm's way. We're greatly concerned about the loss of life in Libya and their government's failure to protect its own people. Indeed, the behaviour of their government in launching attacks on their own people.
Plane loads of passengers are now returning to cities across the continent. At Frankfurt Airport in Germany, evacuees expressed their relief at being out of Libya. With ordinary commercial flights hit by cancellations, many describe the scene at Tripoli's main airport as desperate.
Today in the airport was an absolute chaos. Many people from North Africa trying to leave and get home, thousands. And that was it.
For many, the island of Malta has become the nearest safe destination for those fleeing the violence. More than 500 Russians are also on their way home, many of them specialists working in the oil and construction industries. They bring with them eyewitness accounts of the turmoil.
At night, they would sometimes shoot a lot. We wanted to leave in the morning, but there was a huge crowd, so we flew out at night.
Like many Western powers, Russia has been keen to establish a foothold in Libya. But as the nation descends into chaos, the only option left is to flee. Leif Bark, AlJazeera, Moscow.
Well, Al Jazeera's James Bays has just returned from Tripoli, where he heard first-hand accounts of people caught up in the violence. He joins us from our London studio now. James, what did you hear from them?
Well, I was in Tripoli, Imran, about 5 hours ago. I've just come out on a flight. We went in for just 17 hours because foreign journalists are still banned from Libya, so the only way we could get in was on a transit visa. We flew in, spent 17 hours on the ground trying to assess the situation for ourselves, and then left on a flight back to the UK, which landed in the last hour or so. And it really is a desperate scene, a scene of panic there at Tripoli airport. The flight I've just come back to the UK on was an evacuation flight arranged by the UK Foreign Office, but the flight was only half full. Let me explain to you why. The airport is become a logjam. There are people inside the airport, some of them have been there for 3 days in pretty bad conditions, but there are many more who are outside the airport. It's taking them a long time to get the paper, the bureaucracy, the exit stamps to get a ticket. Then to try and buy a ticket, it's almost impossible to buy a ticket. And then the real difficulty, getting into the airport. There are so many people crowded around the airport, big crowds trying to get through the door, and they're being held back by police who say there's no more room in the airport. Those police are even beating people with clubs, stopping them getting inside the airport. Really desperate scenes, and nearly everyone I spoke to, and I tried to speak to as many people on the ground in Tripoli in the short time we were there, said please tell people about the appalling state of things here at the moment in the airport.
And James, where were they trying to get to? Was it a medley of places?
A medley of places. Many of the people are North African, trying to get to other North African countries, Egypt and Tunisia, for example, putting on as many flights as they can to get people out. But there is this problem that flights are leaving and they're not full because so many people are actually not in the airport and can't get inside the airport. They're telling really desperate stories, Imran, of what it's been like the last few days inside Tripoli. One woman telling me how she witnessed soldiers opening fire on protesters. She said, I saw Gaddafi killing his own people. She was on a rooftop watching that with some other foreigners, and then the soldiers started firing at them, and they didn't want any witnesses to what they had done. They fired at them, they had to duck down, and then smoke grenades were thrown at the rooftop where this group of Britons were watching what was going on.
During those 17 hours, were you able to categorically ascertain who was in charge at the airport? You mentioned police. What sort of police were they?
Yeah, there were all sorts of people around. It was very difficult for us to film. We didn't get a camera out once. We're going to show you the pictures in the coming hours. Most of them were filmed on a high-quality mobile phone, because if we'd got a camera out, we would have been arrested. They don't like international media, and they certainly don't like Al Jazeera there. But in answer to your question, it's pretty clear the airport is still very firmly under the control of Gaddafi's people. All of the normal people you'd expect at an airport, immigration, customs, police, but also secret police patrolling the area on very high alert there at the airport. I'm told by people who made the journey to the airport there are checkpoints all along that road checking people as they come towards the airport. Many people telling me that around Tripoli they believe in the last few hours Gaddafi had been losing control, and